when we look at our nervous system and we are under this immense fight and flight state, like in emergency state, we cannot think clearly. It's impossible. Like our emotional brain takes over, and all our emotional brain wants to do is that you survive. And surviving for in that case is just pushing through and just doing and but to be able to take an intelligent decision, a long-term decision, to look at it from a different perspective, which is needed to resolve some things, we need to get out of this immediate fight or flight state.
So how are you doing today?
I'm doing super well. It's beautiful, beautiful sunny day here in Portugal. So yeah, I'm doing very
Nice.
well.
And your background looks so beautiful. For when you turned on the cars, like this is pretty. Is that something you do on the side? Just setting up the environment to be this nice.
Absolutely. That's actually a big part of the work. It influences it. So when I work with teams on site, how the room feels, how the setting feels has a big influence on how safe we feel, how safe it is to open up emotionally. So it's actually part of it, yes. And I
Nice.
always like to have nice fresh flowers and yeah, the room feel like really welcoming.
Oh, good. And we'll talk more about that, but to keep it a bit more formal, maybe an introduction. Who is Bianca?
Ah, who is Bianca? Wow. How long? Dog, no. I would say I'm really an entrepreneur at heart. I'm a visionary. I've always been very curious. I've always created things and kept everyone busy with it. So that's really part of my nature. And I have founded my first company at a quite young age, still during uni in my early 20s. And then I've built two tech startups in Europe and in the US as a founding CEO, leading teams, managing investments, and so on and so forth. And through my own, I would say, emotional, mental journey and my own burnout, I took a step out and I looked at this whole environment, especially startup world, but also leadership, from a more like outside-ish perspective, and that really opened a new path for me. And what I do today is support leaders and founders on their emotional and mental and psychological journeys of building companies, of leading teams, but also of managing themselves. So you could say, or I title it a little bit as out of lack for a better word, I say it's transformational coaching, but it's really a mosaic of different approaches, and that's what I do on beyond working with people
Yeah.
and guiding people into their hearts and into their inner worlds. I live in Portugal, which also really supports I would say it supports my approach so much, because for me, Portugal really represents kind of my teachings and my approach. So slowness is key, and really connecting with nature, and really living in community, fostering relationships. So it really, I always feel like it really nourishes my approach, and my clients and the people I work with usually feel it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I remember when I visited Portugal last year, I know I mentioned this to you.
Mhm.
Like everyone is super chilled,
Yeah.
not the usual city hustle and hurry, and just enjoying the weather. I think the weather is beautiful, and yeah, I look forward to visiting some other time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really feel, I mean, it makes a huge difference when you have like so many sunny days, and yeah,
Yeah.
as I said, like, really the ocean so nearby. I'm a surfer. I love to surf. So this is also
Oh,
for me one of my biggest like mental and emotional outlets. So whenever I'm really feel like overwhelmed or there's a lot going on, I go for a surf early morning. That's the best. And then like the whole
nice.
life change.
Wow. No, good. Let's talk emotional and mental demand of leadership. You've been CEO 2 times of startups and building them, and I'm sure it took a lot from you. Emotionally, what was that like?
To build and found two
Yeah,
companies.
companies,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, it was a complete roller coaster. I always say it was the best ever MBA and personal development program that I could ever have taken. So for me, business building or business is actually a vessel for finding deeper purpose and for
Yeah.
really shaping one's personality. So especially when, and I see it now, I work a lot with first-time founders. I was very, very young. I was also one of the few female founders and CEOs we had back then. It changed a little bit, but of course not.
Mm.
We're not at the point where where we have
Yeah.
equality. So back then, 2012, when I founded my first company, I was really like, yeah, I, it was very radical in in a way what I did. I also don't have any entrepreneurial family background, so for them it was like completely like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not
Where's
taking
this going?
it? Are you not you're not taking a good job? Like, what is going on? And instead I was I was um building packages myself and going to
Mm.
pharmacies back then selling stuff, and like everyone was like, what are you doing? But yeah, it really of course shaped resilience
Yeah.
in many ways. But also we had some massive, like we had a lot of ups, a lot of especially me as this I was a little bit the face of the company Kiveno. And I got a lot of like awards, and was very soon or very early also speaking on a lot of stages, and we had a lot of press coverage. But also, on the other hand, it was very tough, and we had incredible tough situations.
Mm.
Like, I mean, one of the hardest moments I remember, like so like I remember everything to this date, was when we had to do a big down round, and I had to
Mm.
um, inform a quite big part of the team that we basically have to let them go after they really, put
Yeah.
everything into
What do
it.
you mean?
But we couldn't make it. So yeah, it was. I mean, it's just rough and tough, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I can, and just with what you're saying, letting people go. Sometimes people feel it's easy for people who get to do that, but imagine building connections with people. You know how much energy they've put into this. You know, this is their source of livelihood. I don't think it's easy for anyone to just walk up and say, "Hey, leave the job. It's all over." Yeah, just
Oh my
tying with what you're saying.
God. No, no, no. Like I remember I couldn't sleep for like 4 or 5 nights, and I really
Wow.
pushed it. I pushed it back, and I it was, I mean, it was really, really incredible hard for me. But that's also part of I call it the entrepreneur's dilemma, or the
Mm.
startup paradoxon, that as a founder, as a CEO, you basically always have to pretend everything is great. We are growing, we are going strong, we are making it. But in oftentimes, like, it's definitely not the reality. And
Yeah.
then people who do not understand the startup world, oftentimes come with this approach. well, then just take a little bit of time, or why do you not communicate it to your team or to your investors? But as a founder, I know that, you know, everything, that the survival of my company, and with it everything I've put into it, and everyone who
Yeah.
has put everything into it, kind of depends on me being this, you know, super positive
Superstar.
communicator.
Yeah.
So this is a bit the ridiculous part, where people who are not kind of in the startup world try to give these advices. And by the way, this is also a reason why so many leaders and founders who are already, I mean, they already know they have quite severe emotional issues, mental
Yeah.
issues, they are facing burnout, but they do not take, let's say, the normal steps, or they do not seek out psychological help, because they're like, well, what should I do? Should I just, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm nobody can replace me at an early stage of a company.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So now you're in a phase where you get to help leaders, founders do go through this process. What are some of the things you tell them when you coach them? What are some of the ways they can manage this? Because it's a lot of pressure, right?
Yes.
It's a company that needs to grow. There are people you need to look after. Then, and most leaders, I think at the end of the day, they put themselves last, right? Because every
Yeah.
other thing needs to actually work, and that's a lot of pressure that can lead to severe consequences. So, what do you tell them
Yeah.
when you coach them?
Yeah, yeah. So yes, you already mentioned it. Like, usually when people come to me, they are under immense stress. And of course, they do not come to me when we could still work a little bit, you know, like
Yeah.
manage everything nicely. No, like everything is burning, and basically they are already in a burnout, and and
Mm,
it's like really high noon emergency. So what I first always do is, I call it, we try to create a little bit more space, because they are so, you know, they so under immense stress. And when we look at our nervous system, this is why I studied a lot our nervous system, our neurobiology. When we look at our nervous system and we are under this immense fight and flight state, like in emergency state, we cannot think clearly. It's impossible. Like, our emotional brain takes over, and all our emotional brain wants to do is that you survive. And surviving, for in that case, is just pushing through and just doing, and
mm,
but to be able to take an intelligent decision, a long-term decision, to look at it from a different perspective, which is needed to resolve some things, we need to get out of this immediate fight or flight state. So I usually start working with the people that I guide, on the nervous system, actually, with the body.
mm,
So it can be as simple as starting when they arrive in this state, that I do a check-in with them, and we breathe for like 5 or 7 minutes, and they really feel how much calmer they get. And then they arrive, and usually then some emotions show up, and then we can start working with these emotions, and then we can start working with their fears that come up. Most of the founders are actually tremendous fears and anxiety, but they
mm,
cover it with, you know, like with, oftentimes with harshness or anger, or something that is more like outward pushing. And yeah, from really the first stage is about trying to get a little bit more space,
okay.
to let things a little bit more like calm down. Imagine you have this water, and there's this massive storm, and
Yeah.
everything is just flying around. So what we try to do is like let this storm pass for a little bit, and let all these particles sink, so that we can start seeing a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
So this is usually the first big stage and phase, that I work with that we are in when I work with very high-powered leaders and founders. And then you.
No, go ahead. I wanted to follow up, but please just go
Yeah.
ahead.
And then the second part is more about really looking at the situation. So what is there that is not working, or what are the issues like that? So now that things have settled a bit more and that the leader founder is a bit more calm, we can really start observing the situation and kind of dissecting it a little bit, taking a different. So that's my role is usually I'm more a space holder. I open a space for you, and with my questions I guide you to take a different perspective on things. So we start to look at the situation from a different perspective. I have a very systemic approach, so we always see the interconnectedness of everything. And then through that, we oftentimes already see the patterns, the issues, the things that really take a lot of energy, and that are really the, let's say, like the epicenter of what is going on. And then in the third stage, only then we go into kind of more solutions and more now a change approach. And in general, with CEOs, it's always about doing less. It's never about doing more. Like in
Yeah.
5 years of really working one-on-one with hundreds of leaders, there was not one single one where I would say do more. It's usually about doing less and letting go of this intense grip. So many CEOs, and I mean, I feel them so much, like I
Yeah.
feel them. They have built up everything themselves. Of course, in the beginning, as a founding CEO of a startup, especially, you did everything. So you know everything best. But if you keep on holding so tightly and not giving up some of your control, because this is the main
Yeah.
issue for most of them, letting go of control, well, you will burn out eventually, or your team will not be happy. You cannot empower other people in your, let's say,
People.
in your core team, in your C-level team, if you micromanage everything. So yeah, in essence, it's really about like facing one's fear of letting go of control. And when we really trace that back, which I love to do when the founder is open, it's eventually a fear of death. So that's
Mm.
what, when you go really deep into it, there is this fear of, it's a fear of, can I survive if I'm not managing everything?
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm,
So two thoughts on that. I also run a coaching program for productivity, and I tell people the idea of productivity is not to be constantly busy. I think that's what we understand as being there, being in control. You have to do everything every time, but it's more of being very effective and efficient, right? And one of the best ways to do that is how you prioritize, how you delegate, just like you said. And for most founders, and I know it's difficult when starting off, but the yardstick of success, one of the yardsticks is being able to replicate what you do in others so that they can comfortably do it even while you're not there, right? It should not be so dependent on you that without you being there, everything crumbles. I understand the fear, but what you're saying is so spot on. And it's something I even had to train myself to do in my little space to learn how to let go and trust people enough to know that
mm,
they have the skills, they have the capacity, they can do what they need to do. Just
mhm.
reiterating what you said.
Yes, 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 yes. And then that's more a philosophical approach, but
Yeah.
I love it. When we look at the business just as a, like, it's a small representation of our approach to life
Yeah.
in general. So we can see in the way how we lead our business, oftentimes this is also how
Ah.
we approach life, right? And this is the phenomenal thing that happens, that when leaders start working on their business, we don't need to do anything else, but their life really changes oftentimes
Yeah.
in many different areas. Their relationships change, their like approach to life in general, and it's incredible what they report
Mhm.
back oftentimes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
Let's talk on time of coaching because, like you said, most people come when things are already on fire.
Yeah.
Um,
It's our human
and
nature.
exactly, if things are working, we ask ourselves, why should I get a coach when there is no problem?
Mhm.
But maybe tell us, when is the best time for someone to come or have a coach or start putting in these processes in place? When do you think is the best time?
Well, I mean, I always say it's actually work for life, because we once we establish this beautiful, trustful container, there's always something going on, and there's always something we can reflect on, and we can go deeper. That doesn't mean when we start seeing, coaching and personal development or self-reflection, emotional intelligence from a completely different perspective, that doesn't say, oh, I have a problem that I need to fix, but I'm a human being, and I'm on this beautiful learning journey called life, and there's always something that I can, be more compassionate towards and understand deeper and be more curious. Then it's actually uh, a path for life to constantly learn, to look deeper, to reflect. And for example, I have like I have a coach since many, many years who supports me, and it doesn't mean that I check in all the time, but it's so good to have someone where I know, okay, this person really knows me and knows where I'm at, and when something comes up, I have someone to just reflect with. And it's amazing. It's like going to a dentist or going to, I don't know, doing your health checkups. So for me, it's really um yeah, work for life. But yes, most people first need a crisis to start doing the work.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah. And when we look at, so I'm also teaching emotional mastery and
Yeah.
resilience and everything on at a university, a very forward thinking, future oriented university, Tomorrow University. And we are also looking into why or how leaders develop consciousness. So, how a leader develops from being egocentric. So
Yeah.
it's all about me. I want to build my company. I want to build it fast. I want to have success, to the transformation to having what we call a more eco perspective. So looking at the we. So looking at what can I really impact with my company? How can I make the lives of other people better, or the planet or whatever? And usually this transformation from ego perspective to eco
Yeah.
perspective needs a major personal crisis. So what we
Mhm.
can say is that humans only develop when they are really forced to to change.
That's just terrible. That's terrible of us as humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah,
So
so
one of in terms of leadership, knowing how we react to things, how should that affect how we build our team? So if I'm probably an egocentric person, how should that guide me in selecting those who I work with to help
mhm,
me? Because I think that's another avenue through which this can be
mhm,
mitigated a bit. Yeah. So your thoughts
yeah,
on that?
yeah. So just a little preface to that. So the consciousness of an organization, of your startup, of a team, is always related to the consciousness of the highest person, so the CEO or the management team or the board. So we can say that the awareness, the consciousness, the openness of your team is fully dependent on you if you are the leader or the CEO, which emphasizes the need and the importance of you being self-reflective and of you developing yourself. And then as a CEO, as a leader, I would always say, I mean, we all know this, but I find it really true, to hire people that are smarter than you, to hire people. And that also comes with this fear of like, what if someone takes over,
Yeah.
or what if someone, there are a lot of fears that you can have to confront in a founder journey. The ego is usually very, very present and has a lot of fear. It's usually the ego that is afraid. And then I really worked best with having people with very complementary skill sets on my team that were a bit hard in a way to work with because they had completely different needs. But once I understood that this is actually the magic and it brings in, I mean, that's the birthplace of innovation and of
Yeah.
really cool things, to work with people who are different than you and who also are open to really criticize you, give you feedback, who are self-confident to also show you things. I would say that's the most important thing. And then of course, I always I would always advertise for CEOs to get a coach. I mean, not only because that's my
Yeah.
profession now, but honestly, I know that I would have run my company, especially the first one, so differently if I would have had someone that I trusted by my side. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the change the idea of, from fear to more of a partnership. Look, these people are not here. Obviously, you do your checks. Fears are valid, but you can't live by that, and you need to move from that mindset to a more positive, accepting, collaborative mindset to avoid that
Mm,
burnout. So, for those who currently are in that burnout situation, right now we've talked of those that I don't wait for the crisis to happen, then we try to react. Some people are already feeling that the effect of constantly pushing in their body,
yes.
in their mind, in their emotions. What can they start doing to change this? Some people might be skeptical about going to a coach. We've already talked about the need for coaching, but what else can they do to just make them move in the
Yeah,
right path?
there's certain really, really important factors and yeah points to start with. The first one is sleep. So really try when you, I mean, that's the paradoxical thing, because many people who are under high stress and pressure, what happens? They stop sleeping well, they have
Yeah,
insomnia, they wake up. But cultivating a better sleep hygiene and really starting to respect the body's needs for rest, meaning no like phones and everything 2 hours before we go to bed, like all this,
yeah,
we can all read it up, we know this, but really respecting our body's needs for rest is so so important, because we know we cannot function well when we are under such a incredible sleep deprivation. So
yeah.
cultivating a better sleep hygiene, then I would put that on top. That's way more important than getting a coach. It's
Yeah,
reconnecting with nature. So going out in the morning for, and if it's 10 minutes of catching some sunlight or being out to balance our circadian rhythm a little bit more and to
yeah,
stimulate hormonal production. That's really important. But then spending time unplugged in nature, nature is the ultimate healer. Like when we are in nature and when we allow it, there is so much science on how nature, water, of course, the ocean is amazing, the lakes, everything that connects us to this earth energy is incredible. But then also, I mean, many people who are experiencing burnout and exhaustion are also closing towards connection, towards social connection. So really
Okay.
having someone who you feel vulnerable, you can be vulnerable with. And it
Okay.
does not have to be a professional. It can be, of course, a friend or a partner. So that's also very important, to not let this deep, deep loneliness creep in. That's important. And then in general, I mean, so much connecting with our breath, remembering that our breath is our anchor, and our breath is the fastest way to calm down our nervous system. So when we start breathing deeply into the belly, it's incredible how fast we can get out of this intense states. And then one last thing, also because I come more from the also, yeah, bio biohacking
Yeah.
scene, the company in the US. It's super important when you're facing burnout. So what most people do, right? They sleep less or they sleep
Yeah.
really badly. They already have no energy. So what do? We drink coffee or other
Yeah.
stimulants, and it completely destroys our hormonal cycle, especially
Mm.
our cortisol production. So when I was in my own burnout, I I had a checkup, a health checkup, and the expert, the doctors told me like, wow, I cannot believe that you're even able to stand in front of me. Like your cortisol levels are so, like, so out of everything. It's amazing that you're even kind of, standing upright. So this is really important. So cortisol, like checking our cortisol, checking our vitamins, also our minerals and everything is also, yeah, really important. And then there's lots more, but that I would
Yeah.
say are the emergency
And
measures.
the beautiful thing about what you just said are things that people can actually do if they're
Mhm.
intentional about it. Sometimes we try to look for very robust, sophisticated solutions, while the basic things of life can actually help us go past what we are currently going through. Sleep, like I'm sure we all know we require 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day, but
Yeah.
getting ourselves to do that, and it's like you said, we need to respect our body, we need to
Mhm.
respect our minds, and know that we need rest, and
Mhm.
start from there and see where it goes. Thank you for sharing so much on the
But
call today. Yeah,
wisdom,
yeah, I
one
think
last thing that I would love to add is like one big
yeah,
revelation for me also. You just said it. It's actually the simplest things that are most effective. And simple doesn't
mm,
mean that they are easy. But what I really learned from like studying for many years, like very advanced techniques and trauma methods and emotional release approaches, in the end, everywhere it's about resonance. So the healing part happens through resonance, through having someone who spends time with you with an open heart, and who allows you to be seen in your vulnerability. And this is actually what every person could do. So every person would be a healer if we would take a different approach and see it from a different perspective. And for me, that's so phenomenal, because I feel like this is really hope for the world if we understand that we could all be healers for each other and
yes.
space holders. We don't need only the professionals or only someone really advanced to help us. Yeah.
That is a transformational piece you just said now. And yeah, sincerely, and I like it because it shows the power that is locked up within us, and everyone should contribute
Yeah.
to it. If we leave it for some specialist, let's be honest, then you compare the ratio of specialists to those in need, it will overwhelm even the specialist. The specialist will need to recover from burnout. So
Yes,
we all need to go into that space where we realize we can be
yes,
healers to other people when we do the
exactly.
simple things. Like you said, doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple.
Yes,
Thank you for
yes.
sharing.
So
If people
welcome.
want to reach you, yeah, we've been on the call for yeah, time just goes very fast when we enjoy some of those conversations. If people would like to contact you to probably just learn more about what you do, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'm quite active on LinkedIn under my name. It's Bianca Gfrei, Gfrei. It's a bit complicated, but in German it means free. So I find it
Oh,
quite
nice.
and then on my website, biancagfrei.com. And yeah, I'm super happy to connect. And I also always offer like this 30-minute calls, and I always try to make them as impactful as possible. So it's definitely also something where we can get to know each other and where we can feel each other and just talk a little bit. Yeah.
Indeed, and this has been impactful. The 30 or so minutes you've given us. So thank you so much for making our time for this call. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Pleasure. Bye bye.